A dying sky, a doomed girl. The winds moved like fire across the jagged cliffs of Varellon. The sky above roared with a deep red glow, as if the planet itself was crying out. The ground cracked beneath the pressure of the rising heat. There was no safety here, no place to hide, no one to call. Lyra stood at the edge of a broken ravine, her body weak and shaking. Ash clung to her pale skin. Her thin hands held tightly to a stone, not for shelter but to keep herself from falling. The air tasted like smoke and salt. She had never known fear like this before. Not when she was cast out, not when they turned their backs on her. Not even when she first saw the fire eat her old village from a distance. But now, with the firestorm coming closer and no one left to help her, she felt a silence inside her chest that was louder than any scream. Her people believed in strength. They followed rules that had been set long before she was born. Those who questioned were called weak. Those who warned were told to stay quiet. She had spoken once, just once. She told them the fire would come earlier than expected. She had begged them to check the readings. No one listened. They called her voice broken. They called her eyes too soft. They left her with nothing but a piece of dried food and a cracked water flask. A lesson, they said. A chance to survive alone or not at all. Now the ground trembled beneath her feet. Black clouds swirled above like angry shadows. The firestorm was not a wave. It was a wall. A living force that moved with purpose. The heat pressed closer, lifting the dust and hurling it into the wind. She tried to run, but her leg gave out. She dropped near the rocks and crawled under a small ledge, breathing heavily. Her chest burned. Her eyes stung. The sky had become a furnace. Far above her in the sky, a human ship scanned the land below. A small craft, old in design but strong in build, floated between the storm lines. Inside, a lone soldier named Reed sat quietly, his eyes fixed on a blinking signal. He had seen many battlefields. He had fought in dark zones and quiet wars. He had saved lives and watched others fade. He knew what this signal meant. A life. A single small pulse. Not from his kind, not human. But still, it was a life. He pressed the comms button. No answer. Static. A weak signal fought through the noise. The storm was too close. The ship's system warned him to retreat. Orders were clear. No diversions. No personal missions. Stay in range. Stay safe. He paused for a moment. Then he turned the ship. The engines roared as the ship dived low. Scanners showed rough terrain, collapsing ground, unstable heat zones. A bad place to land. But he found a narrow drop near the canyon's edge. He activated his exosuit, a heavy frame of armor built for war, but used now for rescue. As the doors opened, heat rushed in. The suit's systems fought the pressure. He stepped out. Lyra felt the rocks above her shake. The sound was not like thunder. It was heavier, sharper, like something had broken through the sky. Her eyes opened weakly. Through the smoke, a shadow moved toward her. Large, unknown. She pulled herself deeper into the stones. Her heart pounding. Reed moved fast. His sensors picked up a small body under the rocks, life signs weak. He knelt beside the ledge and used the suit's arm to lift a piece of stone. There she was, small and curled, eyes wide with terror. He raised his hands slowly, open and clear, no weapon. No threat, just breath, just calm. Lyra wanted to run, but her legs could not move. She looked into the strange helmet. It was shaped like no face she had ever seen. No eyes, just a glass. Front and metal lines. Yet there was something in the way the shape tilted, something in the way the hands stayed still. Not like a hunter, not like a soldier. Not like her people. Reed reached forward gently and placed a small oxygen patch near her mouth. She hesitated, then breathed in. Cool air filled her lungs. She blinked once. Her chest felt less tight. The burning faded slightly. The ground cracked again. A new wave of fire was coming. Reed picked her up with care, cradling her in his arms. She was light, too light. He turned back toward the ship, running fast as the sky began to fall behind him. The firestorm chased them like a living beast. As they reached the cliff edge, the rocks gave way. The ship hovered above, but the landing point was now gone. Reed leapt forward, firing the suit's grapple into the ship's belly. The cable pulled them both up as flames reached where they stood just moments ago. Inside the ship, the doors shut tight. The suit hissed as it cooled. Reed set her down on the floor, checked her vitals again, and then removed his helmet. His face was tired, scarred, but calm. Lyra stared at him, a human. The stories told of beasts in armor who burned villages and shattered moons. But this one had not spoken a word. He had not drawn a weapon. He had not left her behind. For the first time since she was cast out, she felt something she had almost forgotten. She felt safe. And far below them, the firestorm raged across the canyon, turning stone into dust and heat into memory. But inside the small craft, in that quiet space between two strangers, something had survived. Not just a life, but the beginning of something neither of them yet understood: the rescue and fear of the unknown. Inside the small human ship, silence filled the air like a blanket. The engines hummed in the background as the firestorm faded behind them. Lyra sat quietly against a wall, her hands folded tightly in her lap. Her skin felt raw. Her chest still ached from smoke, but she was alive. Somehow she had escaped the fire. Across from her, the human moved with care. He touched glowing panels on the wall. Strange machines opened and closed at his command. His face showed no fear, no anger, only focus. His armor now lay on the floor beside him, marked by heat and broken stone. He had risked himself for her. A stranger, an alien. She could not understand why. Lyra had never seen a human before. Her people spoke of them with caution. They said humans were wild and dangerous. They built machines that could tear planets open. They fought with fire and cold and steel. No one in her village had ever met one. No one had ever wanted to. Yet here she was, alone with one inside a flying beast of metal. He walked over to her and held out a silver tube, a drink. She hesitated. The stories warned of poison, trickery, but he said nothing. He only waited. After a long moment, she reached out slowly and took it. The liquid tasted clean, cooler than anything she had ever known. It washed away the dust in her throat. Her shoulders relaxed just a little. He pointed at his chest and spoke a single word. His voice was deep and steady, not sharp like her people. He repeated the word again. Reed. That was his name. She listened, then touched her own chest and whispered softly, Lyra. Her voice was barely louder than breath, but he nodded once. He understood. The ship tilted gently as it rose higher into the sky. Clouds passed outside the window, glowing orange from the fire still burning below. Lyra looked through the glass with wide eyes. She had never flown before. Her people walked or rode beasts. They feared the sky. They feared machines. She was not sure what she felt now. Fear, yes, but also something else. Wonder. Reed opened a small drawer and pulled out a bandage kit. He knelt beside her and reached for her arm. She pulled back at first, unsure. His hand stopped. He waited again. No rush, no force, only stillness. Slowly, she let him touch the burned skin near her elbow. His fingers were firm but gentle. The cold gel he applied eased the pain. She watched him work. He moved like someone who had done this many times before. Not just for humans, maybe. For anyone who needed it. As the hours passed, the storm below faded. The sky turned dark with stars. Reed guided the ship toward a range of black mountains. Hidden inside one of the cliffs was a small station, not big, not clean, just enough to hold tools, food, power, and shelter. The ship landed quietly in a narrow cave. The doors opened. Cool air flowed in. Lyra stepped out with careful feet. The stone here was dry, no fire, no ash, just peace. She followed Reed inside the station. Lights blinked along the walls. A machine in the corner hummed gently, filtering air. A small bed rested near the back. Reed showed her where to sit, then began checking the systems. He did not speak. She did not need him to. That night, Lyra could not sleep. Her mind ran in circles. What did he want? Why had he come for her? What would happen now? Her people would never take her back. She had been marked. And even if she returned, the fire had likely reached the outer farms by now. Nothing would be the same. She sat near the wall, knees pulled close, watching Reed as he took apart parts of his suit. He cleaned the metal joints, replaced burned wires. His face looked tired. Not weak, just worn like a rock shaped by wind. There were scars on his arm, marks that told of battles she could only imagine. He looked up and noticed her watching. For a moment, neither moved. Then he reached into a pack and pulled out a small metal disc. He pressed a button. A blue light rose from it, forming an image in the air. A planet, green, blue, white clouds. Her breath caught. She had never seen such colors, such water, such sky. He pointed at the image. Earth. His voice said the word once. Earth. She said nothing, just stared. Her world was dry, cold, angry. His was different. He placed the disc beside her, a gift maybe, or a message. Then he stood and walked toward the back, giving her space. She held the disc tightly. It was warm. She thought of the stories her people told, the warnings, the fear. But this human had not been cruel. He had not shouted or struck or demanded. He had saved her. He had offered her water, shelter, and healing. And now he had given her a piece of his home. Lyra looked at the stars outside the cave. They seemed closer now, brighter. She still did not trust him fully, not yet, but her heart was beginning to shift. Fear was turning into something else. Something like hope. Enemies from both sides. The cave station remained quiet. Machines whispered in low tones. A soft blue light blinked near the ceiling. Lyra sat alone near the corner of the room, her hands folded across her lap. The memory of fire still lived in her thoughts, burning slow behind her eyes. Her skin had healed a little, though patches still ached when she moved too quickly. The human, Reed, was nearby. He worked on a long device that hummed as he adjusted its sides. Lyra had no idea what it was, but she kept watching, not because of fear, but because his movements calmed her. Then came the noise. A loud, sharp alarm filled the cave with red light. Reed stood at once and rushed to the controls. Lyra followed behind him slowly, unsure what was wrong. On the screen appeared 3 dots moving fast through the sky. Red dots, hostile signals. Reed tapped on a few buttons. A clear voice came through a speaker, speaking in a rough human tongue. Lyra could not understand the words, but she understood the tone. Orders, warnings. Someone was angry. Reed stepped back from the console, face tense. He turned toward Lyra and pointed to a storage room. She stayed still for a moment, then walked into the room as he asked. Once inside, she sat against the wall and waited. The door stayed half open. Outside, Reed opened a case filled with tools and weapons. He picked a short metal device that fit in one hand, checked the charge, and placed it at his side. Then he grabbed a helmet and placed it on his head once again. His calm steps turned sharp. Something had changed. He was no longer just a rescuer. Now he looked like a soldier again. Lyra heard a soft beep behind her. A screen lit up on the wall. It showed a map, blinking with 2 different colors. One group came from the sky, the others came from the ground. Her eyes widened. The ground signal carried markings she remembered. Her people, her old tribe. Her breath stopped. Why would they come here? They had left her to die. What did they want now? The answer came fast. She remembered the tower hidden in the old ruins, the place her people swore never to enter. A place filled with broken metal and forgotten machines. Yet she had gone there once as a child. She had seen the symbols. Strange, round shapes that meant shield. She had asked her elders what they were. They had told her to stay silent. Now it made sense. The firestorm had changed direction. It would come again soon, stronger, wider. The only way to stop it would be to use the tower's shield system. But no one in her tribe knew the language written on the panels. No one except her. They must have tracked her signal. They must have known the human had rescued her. Now they were coming to take her back, not to forgive her, not to welcome her, only to use what she knew. Once the code was entered, they would have no more need for her. And the humans above? They might fire on the cave before the tribe arrived. She was caught between both sides, outside the station. Reed moved through the rocks, setting up small devices that blinked and scanned the air. The sky was growing darker. Engines could be heard in the distance. Dust rose in thin clouds. Lyra stepped out of the storage room. Reed saw her and shook his head, motioning her to go back inside. She refused. She walked up to him, placed her hand over her heart, and then pointed to the east, to the place where the tower stood behind old hills and buried stone. Reed looked at her, confused at first, then followed her hand. She spoke slowly, using the words she had learned from the panel back on the ship. Shield. Then she made a circle in the air with her fingers. Fire. Then she pushed her hand outward. Protect. His eyes narrowed. He seemed to understand. She reached for a small board and drew a shape with her finger. The tower. Then she drew the sun above it. Then fire waves. Then a shield rising. Her finger moved in fast strokes. She was trying to tell him what needed to happen. Reed stared for a moment, then nodded once. A plan was forming. He turned back to his gear, picked up a small pack, and placed a new power cell inside. Lyra gathered a cloth, wrapped her arms, and picked a short blade from the wall. Not to fight, just in case. Her people were not coming to talk. Together, they left the cave using the side path, climbing through narrow rocks. The human ship stayed. Behind in silent watch, the path to the ruins was hard. Rocks slid under their feet. Strange winds pulled at their backs. But neither stopped. Behind them, the red dots in the sky drew closer. Metal wings cut through the air. The humans would reach the cave soon and find it empty. On the other side, near the hills, the ground team from Lyra's tribe marched fast. They wore long cloaks and carried electric spears. Their faces were hidden behind masks. Not one of them would show mercy. Lyra and Reed reached the edge of the ruins by nightfall. The tower stood broken and cold. Stone covered its base. Rust covered its walls. But the top still pointed toward the sky. It had waited for a long time. Now it would be needed again. They stepped into the shadows of the forgotten city. Every wall whispered of the past. Every step echoed through time. And behind them, two armies moved closer. One from the stars, one from the dust. Lyra gripped the memory of her exile. Reed gripped his last charge of power. Fire was coming, but so were they. The trial of the tower, the ruins, stood silent under a heavy sky. Old stone towers leaned to one side, broken by time and storms. The ground was cracked with dry roots curling like old bones. Dust floated in the air, thick enough to sting the eyes. Lyra moved carefully through the shattered path while Reed followed close behind. His weapon rested at his side, ready but quiet. The air felt tight, filled with waiting. Something old lived here, not alive, but not dead either. They reached the center of the ruins where the tower rose, taller than the rest. Its base was wide, half buried in sand and rock. The door had no handle, just a smooth surface of dull metal. Lyra stepped forward and placed her hand on it. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the wall lit up beneath her fingers. A soft blue line spread out in thin shapes. The old system had remembered her touch. It still knew her kind. She turned to read and gave a small nod. He looked around, scanning the edges of the ruins with sharp eyes. He knew they had little time. The enemy was close. Their signals had vanished from the screen, which meant they were near enough to hide their movement. Lyra stepped through the opening door and entered the tower. Inside, the walls pulsed with dim light. Strange symbols danced across the panels. Machines slept in corners, waiting to be woken. The air smelled of iron and ash. She walked to the center of the room where a round platform waited. At its heart stood a control sphere, smooth and black, like a piece of sky pulled from the night. She reached out and placed both hands on its surface. At once, light filled the room. The walls flashed with ancient memories. Not pictures, but feelings. Fear, fire, silence. Her mind spun as the system began its test. It had been built to stop the flames long ago, but only those with strength of mind could unlock it, not strength in battle, but in heart, in spirit, in truth. Lyra's thoughts were pulled backward. She saw her village again, the cold faces of her elders, the sharp words of rejection. The moment she stood in the center of the circle, hands tied, eyes burning with tears, they had not listened to her warning. They had cast her out. She had begged them to believe her. She had screamed the truth. They had turned away, now those memories returned sharper than before. The system wanted to know if she still carried pain, if that pain had turned to hate. It wanted to know if she would use the shield to protect or to punish. Her hands shook, her breath caught. The room seemed to close in around her dot. She thought of Reed outside, standing watch against enemies from both skies and soil. He had no reason to help her, no promise, no reward, yet he had carried her through fire. He had shared his air and given her water. He had trusted her. She opened her eyes and whispered into the silence, "I will protect." Her voice was steady. "I will not become what they were." The sphere pulsed once. Then light spread across the walls in a wide ring. The platform rose slowly into the air. Panels opened along the ceiling, revealing the true core of the tower. Long steel rods hummed as power woke from long sleep. The shield system had accepted her dot at that same moment. Outside the tower, Reed heard movement, sharp feet striking stone. A blur of shapes moved between the walls. He took cover behind a pillar and waited. 3 figures stepped into view, cloaked in red dust, the tribal warriors. Spears charged with lightning crackled in their hands. One pointed toward the tower and barked a command. The others moved in fast. Reed fired a short blast at their feet, not to kill but to slow. The energy flash lit up the ruins. The warriors dropped low and spread out. One threw a sharp metal disc toward him. He ducked just in time. Sparks danced against the stone. Another closed in from the side. Reed struck with the butt of his weapon and sent him crashing into the wall. From the sky came another sound. A sharp whistle followed by a deep roar. Human drones. They had tracked him here. One hovered above the tower and scanned the ruins. A voice echoed from the ship. Orders. Surrender. The mission was not approved. Unauthorized help for aliens would. Resultant force. Reed shouted back into the wind. She is not a threat. She's the only one who can stop the fire. No reply came. The drone turned its weapon toward the tower. Inside, Lyra saw the red light on the panel. A final warning. The system needed one last action to activate the full shield. The control required a stabilizer to be fixed manually on the outer ring. It was not meant for return. Whoever went out there would not come back. She stared at the panel. Her fingers moved toward the command. But before she could act, Reed's voice filled the tower through the suit's signal. "Stay where you are. Let me finish it." She ran to the edge of the tower and looked out. Reed had already reached the outer deck. He opened the panel and began rerouting power. Sparks flew around him. Heat rose from the machines. The drone above locked its aim on him. Lyra's heart pounded. She shouted his name. He turned once and looked up at her. No fear in his eyes. Only purpose. Only peace. He placed his hand against the tower's frame and pushed the final switch. The sky split with light. A giant wave of energy rose into the air and spread across the land. A dome formed above the hills, stretching far and wide. The firestorm in the distance slammed into it, but bounced back like water against glass. The earth shook. The flames. Scattered dot inside the shield, silence returned. Lyra rushed down the stairs. Smoke filled the lower halls. Sparks fell like rain. She reached the lower chamber and found the control room empty. Her chest grew heavy. She searched through the dust and broken panels until she heard a slow knock behind her. She turned. Reed stood in the doorway, suit torn, face burned, breath shallow but alive. She ran to him and helped him to sit. He coughed once, then smiled just a little. "You did it," he said in a tired voice. She shook her head. "We did." The tower glowed behind them, a symbol of a world saved not by war but by the will to protect. The shield, the sky, the choice. The air inside the tower was thick with smoke. Broken wires sparked above their heads. Panels hissed. The old machine still hummed with power, but it had taken too much. Its strength would not last forever. Outside, the shield stretched wide across the sky like a glowing net, holding back the firestorm that had once ruled this world. The land was safe for now. Lyra helped Reed sit near a stone pillar that had not fallen. His breath was slow. His armor had cracked. The burns on his arm had turned dark red. Yet his eyes stayed clear. He looked at her with a quiet strength that spoke more than words. He had done what others would not. He had saved this world with her. Lyra pulled cloth from her waist and wrapped it around his wounds. Her hands moved gently. No fear now. Number. Doubt. She worked with steady care as if she had done this before. Reed leaned back against the wall. He closed his eyes for a moment, then opened them again. He was still here. Still breathing. The shield outside shimmered like silver wind. The storm had tried again and again, but its fire broke each time against the wall of light. Small pieces of ash floated to the ground like dark snow. The world had changed. Not just the land, but the story as well. Footsteps echoed through the broken halls. Lyra stood and looked toward the entrance. Shadows moved between the fallen stones. Her people had come, not in war this time. Not with spears raised. Their leader walked in silence, face uncovered. The others followed behind him, eyes wide. Faces marked with dust and ash. They saw the tower still standing. They saw the human resting beside it. And they saw her. Lyra stepped forward, her voice steady, her hands at her side. She did not bow. She did not ask for welcome. She did not beg. Her people stood in a long line, quiet, waiting. For a moment, no one spoke. The wind outside slowed. Then she raised her head. Her voice broke the silence. "You left me behind. You let me face death alone. You said I was weak. You said I was wrong. And yet I am still here." She stepped aside and pointed toward Reed. "He saved me. He helped me stand. He helped save you too. He knew nothing of our world. He owed us nothing. Still he fought for it." The leader looked at Reed, then looked at her. His mouth opened, but no words came. He lowered his head. One by one, the others did the same. Not out of shame, but out of respect, Lyra looked up toward the shield. It pulsed like a living heart, but the power was fading. The tower could not hold forever. A new plan would be needed, a new path. Her people would need to learn the old ways again. Not the laws of silence, but the knowledge they had once buried. She had seen the machines, she had seen the codes. She had felt the power. Of choices, she turned to Reed. He tried to rise, but she helped him stay seated. "You need rest," she said softly. He gave a faint smile. She touched his arm gently. "Stay here. Let me speak for both of us." Outside the tower, more of her people gathered. Some brought supplies. Others brought wounded. The firestorm had hit there. Outer camps before the shield rose. They had lost homes. They had lost families. Now they looked toward the tower for hope. Lyra stood at the top of the steps and faced them. She spoke of the fire, of the shield, of the human who had given without asking. She told them it was not strength to rule with fear. It was not wisdom to silence voices. The tower still stood because one human and one cast-out girl stood together. From the crowd, a small child stepped forward. His hands held a piece of broken glass. He offered it to her. A gift, a thank you. Lyra took it with both hands and nodded. Days passed. The sky cleared. The ground cooled. Green began to rise from the black soil. The firestorms no longer held control. The tower still stood, not as a weapon, but as a guide. Her people began to rebuild. But they did not build the way they once had. They listened. They shared. They remembered. Reed healed slowly. Lyra stayed near him. She learned his words. He learned hers. They spoke little, but what they said mattered. The other humans did not return. No more drones flew above. Perhaps they had seen enough. Or perhaps they had listened. One morning, Lyra and Reed walked together to the edge of a cliff where the shield shimmered low on the horizon. Below them, fields stretched wide, untouched by flame. She held the small disk he had once given her. The image of Earth glowed in her hand. Blue, green, peaceful. She turned to him and smiled. "Maybe one day I will see this place." He nodded once. "Maybe one day we will both go." The wind moved gently across the stones. The sky held no fire now. The world had changed, not because of power, not because of fear, but because a warrior saved a voice that was once silenced, and together they lit a path no storm could break. The end.